Hello everyone, my name is Bea and I'm an English teacher. I've been an English teacher for over 30 years and one of my favourite levels to prepare my students for is B2. I'm going to be talking about different ways in which to improve your techniques, your abilities, specifically for the B2 exam. Can I take this opportunity on behalf of myself and all the Exams Factory team to wish you all the very best with your English studies and of course in the B2 exam. Let's start with some speaking tips for the B2 exam. The first tip I'd like to share with you really is that I know that my students get really nervous before the speaking exam, and something I always tell them is, hey, the speaking examiners are just doing a job and they're people too. So my first tip, which might seem a little bit basic, is to remember that because examiners are people too, they really like it. If you go in, you say hello, you say good afternoon, whatever, and smile. It's not all about what you say. Part of it is also your body language. So if you're asked a question or your partner's speaking, you could nod your head to show agreement. You could actually make eye contact with the examiner and not just look down at the floor. Now, I know that might be because you're feeling a little bit nervous, which is totally understandable, but always remember this tip. Examiners are people too. They're just people. And it's really nice if you can be friendly to the examiners because they're going to be friendly to you as well. One really good way of preparing yourself for the speaking part of the exam is to do a little bit of research. Now, that doesn't mean to say you're going to be a detective. It's something as easy as going to your internet, going to the internet or on your phone and just going to the Cambridge website, or even going to Google or your search engine and Googling or writing Cambridge speaking B2 typical questions. So, or when you do this, always make sure if you're using the internet that the website or the source of the information is reliable, which is why I'm recommending the Cambridge website. So let's imagine you're on the Cambridge website and you want to look at some past speaking papers. You might like to find the typical questions which the examiners might ask you. Once you've found those questions, what you could do is look at the question, pause, and just brainstorm some ideas of how you could answer that question. So, for example, let's imagine the question, it could be, and this doesn't have to be a B2 question, but let's imagine it's just an ordinary question. What are your hobbies? Take a little bit of time just to think about how you could answer the question, and you could write them down. Once you've done that, you could take your phone or a clock and time yourself to see how long you speak for. Remember not to just speak saying yes or no, but to try and extend your answer. Extend is one of my favourite words. Extend means to explain why. So not a monosyllable or monosyllabic yes/no answer, but to give a little explanation as to why you are saying this. If you give very short responses, the problem is that the examiners don't have too much information about your level of English. So basically, the more information you can give an examiner or the examiners, the better. Tip 3 is specifically focused on part 2 of the B2 speaking exam. It involves looking at 2 pictures which the examiner will provide you with. Now, you'll be asked to compare the pictures and you'll be asked to answer a question. Now, sometimes if a candidate is super nervous, or if we feel nervous when we do an exam, you might not understand the question the examiner is asking you. So don't panic. Always remember that the question that the examiner is asking you will always be at the top of the two pictures. So you always have that as a reference point. Now, how can you prepare at home for this particular part of the exam? Well, what I do, or what I suggest to my students, is that they can just go to Google and find two pictures which have a similar content. You could just type in something like beach photos. Take two of the pictures, and then you can start practicing by thinking about the similarities or the differences between the two pictures. After you've written something, this also gives you a bit of writing practice, you can put that to one side, look at the two pictures, and record yourself speaking for 1 minute about the two pictures. It's a very good way of seeing how long you can actually speak for, because if you speak for, let's say, 40 seconds, you know that you need to speak a little bit more. Now, something that you need to know about this is that the examiners during the speaking exam have very strict timings. And if the examiner interrupts you while you're speaking, it doesn't necessarily mean that you've done anything wrong. So please don't worry. It might just mean that you've gone over the 1 minute, and that's why the examiner has to stop you. All right, so please don't worry if you are stopped during any part of the speaking exam, but particularly for part 2. It doesn't necessarily mean you've done anything wrong, and you're not going to lose any marks for going over the time. I don't know if you play tennis, or if you play paddle tennis, or if you like watching tennis. I do, and that's why I always like to compare tennis or paddle tennis to part 3 of the B2 speaking exam. Why is it, why do I compare it to a tennis match? Well, in part 3, we call this a collaborative task. Now, a collaborative task is when you have to work together with your partner. So it's not about you, it's about a tennis match. You say something, you hit the ball, your tennis player partner hits the ball back at you with a response. So you're taking equal times to speak. In part 3, you'll be given a diagram, and you can start the conversation by and you have a diagram with a question in the middle, and you have to discuss some points. You can start the conversation giving your opinion, and remember what I said to you earlier about extend. Don't just say, I like this, or I agree with this. Explain why. So you give your opinion, you then ask your partner for their opinion. Your partner hits the ball back with telling you whether they agree or they disagree. It's super important that you both speak for equal amounts of time. So don't be one of these people who tries to dominate the conversation, because remember, for part 3, you're a team. All right? How can you improve things, speaking in general in English, but particularly for part 3? It's super difficult sometimes because maybe you don't have any English friends, or maybe you're not going to an academy, or you don't have much exposure to English, which is why I'd really like to recommend a couple of apps. One of them is called Tandem, and it's a really nice app because it connects you with other speaking buddies who speaks English and they want to practice. And another really, really good app is something called Babbel. I really recommend that you have a look for those two apps and see what you think. And the bottom line is, for part 3, extend. Give reasons why you agree or why you don't agree. You'd be amazed at how many people, and I include my students in this, go and do a speaking exam and they have no idea what to expect during the speaking exam. Don't be one of those people, because there are loads of resources, remember, reliable resources, perhaps the Cambridge English website. And what I recommend is, this is my last tip, tip 5, is that you go to the website and you watch 1 or 2 or 3 sample videos. What's a sample video? Well, a sample video of a speaking test is where 2 candidates are being examined by 2 examiners. How can that help you? Well, it can sort of help you in the sense that you won't be surprised on the day of the exam by any parts of the speaking exam, because you'll know exactly what to expect. So those are my tips. Can I take this opportunity on behalf of myself and all of the Exams Factory team to wish you all the very best with your English studies and good luck with your B2 exam. Thanks for listening.
Exams Factory, your best Cambridge exam experience.